Seela took off the lid covering the rice pot and stirs the rice with the spoon handle. Then, covering the pot, she peeps into her bag. There's coconut sambal in a clay bowl beside Seela, who's seated on a bench, looking impatiently at the boiling rice. It was made by her as soon as she kept the rice on the stove. "Mother, I'm hungry," came the murmur from where Seela looked. Her son, who could be seen slightly through the lamplight, is starving. The name of her only son, who has been conquered by hunger, is Susira. Susira is 13 years old, but had an appearance of a 5-year-old child. He is dark in complexion but lighter than his mother. Susira mourned again, lying on the mat without even being able to stand up due to his starvation. "Mother, I don't know why I can't bear this hunger today." Seela blew to the stove in a hurry to cook the rice, but the stove is in a mid-heat, as if the wood could not be burnt due to Seela's tears. The tears coming for her son's mourning were accompanied by a weep. But she didn't seek to comfort her son. She might have thought that she has done enough to comfort him. "Mother," the cry was very faint. "Mother, sing a song for me." Even though Seela heard what Susira said, whining, she used to stare at him in a pleasant surprise, saying, "What, my son? Move away from the road, mother. There's vehicles coming." The child whined again. Susira, who has gone mad of his hunger, continued to mourn. Seela instantly takes off the pot from the stove without letting it to be cooked in the mid-heat, and serves the sizzling rice to the bowl, trying to blow out it by stirring from the spoon. Seela adds the coconut sambal to the bowl, hurrying to her son, and feeds him with a mouthful of rice. Susira slowly opened and closed his mouth with the dry lips and chewed the rice unhurriedly. It was unbearable for Seela to glance how hard it was to gulp the rice for Susira, who used to eat lying on the floor itself. Susira had hiccups twice while he was looking at her mother's face, which had rivers of tears. Seela immediately tried to give him some water. Susira, being unable to gulp the water and the water coming out of his mouth, tensioned Seela. "Son, son, my life, my child." Seela was murmuring and trying to move her child. She observed him for a while and was screaming. Susira, Seela's only child, who was 13, is dead. He has died of starvation. Hearing her screaming, the neighbors have rushed into her small house. Seela was muttering unconsciously. The mouthful of rice mixed with the sambal was in her right hand and the bowl in the left. Seela was quiet for a while. After a few minutes, Seela whispered to Anula, "Anulake, my son is in a deep sleep. Awake him so that I can feed him. He is sleeping in hunger." Seela was out of her mind. Anula could understand the situation. "Okay, Seela, give me the rice. I will feed him. You must be tired. Sit down here." Anula kept Seela seated on the floor. Neighbors were whispering here and there. Seela slowly whispered to Anula's ear, "Anulake, teach me a song. My son asked me to sing a song. I don't know them." Anula calmed down her and made her to sleep on a mat. Seela was gone mad, but was quiet. Everything happened since that morning was screening in front of her. Seela, who got up early, could hear Susira's grunt in his sleep, as she could see that the child was sick. Seela quickly washed herself and took the child to the hospital. The doctor inspected Susira and prescribed medicine for him by 8 a.m. These medicines cause more hunger, so feed him well. It was his advice to Seela. As soon as she came home, Seela gave him the medicine and cooked some rice and a curry. While she was collecting rice, Seela sighed and murmured something to her. She who cooked the rice, eyeing on her son for several times, served some cooked rice and pumpkin curry to the plate and fed Susira. Susira, who ate double than usual, drank some water and slept again on the mat. Son, eat the rice from the pot for your lunch and sleep. I will come home soon to cook the dinner. Saying that, Seela hurried from home. In other days, even though Seela left home with the breakfast, today the rice wasn't enough for her as her son ate twice than usual. If she had taken from the rice, it won't be enough for Susira to have the lunch. So that Seela left the home without having her breakfast. Seela worked at Veeraratna house. Mrs. Veeraratna used to avoid assigning hard work on Seela due to her slight body and the faint that she had once a week. If Mrs. Veeraratna asked her to not to come, she would definitely die broken-hearted. So Mrs. Veeraratna let her work as she wished. Seela treated Mrs. Veeraratna in devotion as she knew of their fate without the wage earned from Veeraratna house and she with her son dying in starvation. That morning the work at the kitchen of Veeraratna house was done by Seela. Seela's mandatory work was to help the head chef and to wash off the dishes. She did those works in great interest. Usually the amount of Seela's dinner was connected with Susira's dinner. When he used to eat the meal enjoying, Seela made it a habit to have her dinner if Susira left her any. Seela had a good meal for her last night dinner. It may be because Susira avoiding eating due to his illness. But she didn't get her breakfast today. Usually she was having her breakfast from Veeraratna house. There are endless times that she used to keep the lunch touching to show that she had a good meal and throwing it off. She could remember her son Susira whenever she had a complete meal at her hand. Susira's father had been missing since Susira was about 1 year old. That was after the doctor's confirmation about Susira being unable to walk from birth. Now Susira could walk here and there slightly. But as he got injured at trying to walk, Susira kept kneeling with the help of his hands. All his needs have been fulfilled by Seela for 12 years. And she always had dreams of giving him everything without any lacking. Their neighbors Anula used to look after Susira at Seela's absence and that help was a great comfort to Seela. Seela used to avoid the rare request of Susira of taking him to her working place. She was afraid of the feelings that Susira would have when he sees the luxurious house that she spent the daytime letting him to be in their small hut. She also refuses to eat the royal meal without anyone noticing, because as soon as she picks up the rice, the grief for her child becomes stronger than hunger. Her hunger vanishes when she thinks, if I could give this rice to my child. Even today at noon, she was too hungry to bear. The lunch included a dal curry, carrot sambal, pumpkin, leafy greens and sea fish. Seeing all these in the lunch, instantly she could remember Susira. Seela, who remembered her child who ate rice and a pumpkin curry for the breakfast and same to the lunch as well, kept all the others aside and ate on the pumpkin and rice. She looked at the piece of fish and other vegetables from time to time. Those who are watching might think that she has passion for them, but something she never thought of came to her mind today. It was to ask Mrs. Veeraratna for her parcel of fries with these fish and other curries and take it to the child. Even though Seela has been working in the Veeraratna house for 9 years, not a single day food was taken home. Every day leaving the Veeraratna house with the daily wage given by Mrs. Veeraratna, Seela buys their daily needs and goes home to cook the dinner. After cooking the dinner, she and her son enjoys their meal. The next day, Seela wakes up early and prepares both the breakfast and lunch for Susira and leaves home with her breakfast. Every day, she goes to work at about 9 a.m. This has been her daily routine for the past 9 years. After lunch, Seela slowly went out of the kitchen to find out where Mrs. Veeraratna was. It was a happy day for Mrs. Veeraratna as her 2 sons and her daughter were on vacation. Seela slowly walked towards the Veeraratna family dining room. Before reaching there, she used to stop at 2 places to think. That may be due to her fear of doing something unfamiliar. Seela used to turn around and stand back slightly, out of the sight of Mrs. Veeraratna and her children who were having their lunch. That was until the Veeraratna family finishes their meal. She didn't remember how long it took. Seela could hear something often said by Mrs. Veeraratna. Son, put the phone aside and eat. Come on, son. What do you have that much to watch in it? First eat, will you? Can't do this with you, mother. Dialogues like these were often exchanged. I wonder if he's like this every day. It was the younger daughter. She studies law. If this craze hits on the head, it's all over. All because you, mother. That was the eldest son who lived abroad for his higher studies. Seela rarely could hear such conversation. In the meantime, she remembered her son. She was unable to provide any education for her 13 years old son because it was difficult for him to walk. But she used to teach him reading, math, and other good habits as much as she could. Not only that, but also Seela used to teach him stories and songs and customs to eat with respect. If she could, she would send her child to school and educate him. If that were the case, Susira would have happily learned and become a scholar. Seela would be comforted if he could get a job and find his needs on his own. If it happened like that, Seela could prepare a good meal for his dinner as well as a complete breakfast. She did the cooking by heart. Seela could see herself waiting for Susira to open the table with rice, sea fish, dal, carrot sambal and pumpkin. Seela, what is it? She was unaware that Mrs. Veeraratna had approached her and has been looking at her for a while. Seela, who had regained consciousness from the world of thoughts, was shocked. No, madam, I will leave. Saying that, Seela walked towards the kitchen. Seela, what's the problem? I've been waiting for a long time, said Mrs. Veeraratna, who came after Seela. No, madam, nothing, said Seela with her chin on chest. But Mrs. Veeraratna went to Seela with her kind look on the face, asking, tell me if you have something to tell. Seela remained quiet. Do you want some money? Mrs. Veeraratna was guessing. But for the past 9 years, Seela had never asked for extra money. Nothing, madam. It was her answer. Finally, Seela, who had been pressing her right with the left fingers, could gain some courage and asked Mrs. Veeratna in a faint voice, "Madam, may I have a parcel of rice with a piece of fish for my son? Child is not well." With the last few words, tears from Seela's eyes went through her face and fell into her hand. Mrs. Veeratna was a kind lady, so that she could not finish listening to Seela's story. Her eyes were also filled with tears. She has offered many to Mahasangha. She has travelled so far to help the poor people. Mrs. Veeratna's chest tightened as soon as she heard Seela's story. "I offered many all over the country, but missed the helpless one who had been next to me." Mrs. Veeratna used to cry because of this thought. They both cry for two reasons. Seela for her son. Mrs. Veeratna cries with regret over past 9 years. "I could have asked about Seela's child even once." She thought it is usual for the workers to take food home. The way Seela was trembling to ask about a rice parcel portrays how it becomes a strange thing to her. Mrs. Veeratna, who experienced this, could not erase the image of Seela from her mind, not the remaining parcel, a good portion of rice. "And also don't forget to take the dinner for Seela and son hereafter." Mrs. Veeratna left the place wiping off her tears. Seela was overwhelmed by two things. She became happy through her tears as she could provide good meal for her son every day. The other was the kindness of Mrs. Veeratna. It was 4 p.m. "I finished preparing the dinner, Seela. I am leaving. You also leave after washing the dishes." Saying that, Prema left the house. She prepares taste food. She starts work in the kitchen of Veeratna house at 5 in the morning. She cooked the morning, noon and night meals and goes home after work between 3 and 4 in the evening. After dinner, Seela washes the dishes, cleans them and leaves the Veeratna house. The Veeratna family finishes their dinner at around 7:30 p.m. Seela finishes her work around 8 and goes home around 8:15 p.m. Most of the time around 7 p.m. Anula used to eye on Susira. When Seela arrives, she is released. Seela packed the dinner on the trays and carried the food to the table. It was around 6:30 p.m. Some curries were still simmering on the stove. It is because they must be kept hot for the meal. Seela often remembered Susira. "Anula Akka will look after him. I will take the dinner for him," Seela murmured to herself. Seela went towards the dining room by 7 p.m. That's because they still haven't asked Seela to bring the rest of the food. She could hear Madam saying, "Son, come to eat." Seela came back to the kitchen. She walked back slowly from the kitchen. After another quarter of an hour, she let out a sigh of relief. "If they eat, I can go home quickly," Seela murmured to herself. "Son, what are you doing? Please come and eat. Others have finished eating." Seela was tensioned at Madam's voice. Her wish to go to her child has been challenged. That's because all of dishes have to be kept clean for breakfast tomorrow, and it cannot be done until everyone has eaten. The 2 vegetables that the little master said he liked to eat are still in short supply, Seela murmured. Madam didn't ask Seela to bring the vegetables yet because the little master wasn't ready to eat. "Wait, mother, I'm in a call," little master answered his mother about 10 minutes later. Seela is of the opinion that when she hears the critical stories of Mrs. Veeratna, who often accuses Little Master of being on the phone or computer at all the times, it is not possible for him to use them and do something useful. As Seela walked from the kitchen to the dining room, she saw Little Master talking to someone from the phone, seated on the beautiful bench kept in the yard. But it couldn't be heard. Everyone at work knows that Little Master usually uses that place to do his private chats not known by his family. Seela stared at him from the distance and sighed until Little Master's message was over. She missed her child time to time, even though Seela could reach home in 15 minutes. Her departure was based on Little Master's time of dining. Seela went back to the kitchen after staring at the incessant phone conversation. She started to parcel a rich meal for her child with the blessing of Mrs. Veeratna. She slowly kept the vegetables and the fish on the rice and tied the parcel as Little Master was still absent at the dining table. Seela tied the parcel and put it in a silly bag. She acted out the way she would go to his son with the bag in her hand. Suddenly, as if she could remember something, she kept the rice parcel on the chair, went to the place where Little Master could be seen. He was still with the phone. 8 p.m. has passed. Seela had a frighteningly restless feeling. Time to time, she went to the kitchen and the place where Little Master could be seen. Time to time, Seela could hear Little Master's mother, elder brother, and sisters shouting and accusing him. But Little Master used to laugh, sometimes look around, gets up, walks away, and secretly talk as if he didn't care. 8:30 p.m., 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. Seela's head was burning up. She cried looking out the door, cried looking at Little Master, but no one knew. Seela was shocked at the accusation of Big Master towards Little Master. Just don't burden mother, eat and then play your drama. Little Master said, I'll hang out now. I'll call in a while. Looking at his brother with an angry face. I will eat later. I'm not hungry. Seela went cold. Mrs. Veeratna and his sister were accusing Little Master. Why did you accuse your brother? Come on now, eat. Mrs. Veeratna took her son to the dining room. Seela, she shouted. By then, Seela was at the door with the 2 sizzling dishes on a tray. Little Master used to avoid others and continued to stare at the phone angrily. He was even quiet at the mother's request. Eat, son. The stubbornness of a small child was evident in him. Meanwhile, his phone rang. Seela's legs went cold. Little Master's sister accused him. Don't you answer that? If you do, you will see. I will scream. You don't even listen to mother. Little Master was silent, without having anything to say. Mrs. Veeratna was serving him rice. I won't eat today, said Little Master in anger. But Mrs. Veeratna didn't care about his words and continued to serve rice. Younger daughter used to pass that place saying, good for you. Seela glanced from afar. She leaned against the wall outside the door and stared at it with tears in her eyes. Little Master looked around as he ate and resumed the phone conversation. It took him about 5 minutes to take a mouthful of rice and take the next mouthful. Seela shed tears at every time. She refused to look at the time. Little Master finished the message and slowly ate again. Meanwhile, something was working on the phone on the left hand. Seela could not understand that. He was playing games on the phone. It was another habit that he often does. He suddenly grabbed his hand from the plate. Seela quickly ran away and began to collect the dishes. Why, Seela? I'm not finished. I just took the hand to play the game, Little Master said. She went to the door and hid again with her trembling, lifeless legs. She was accompanied by a weep. If Little Master finish eating, I can go to my son with his dinner, she murmured. She pressed her face against the wall. She didn't know the time. Seela heard Little Master coming out the dining table. She immediately went and removed the dishes and took them to the kitchen and washed and cleaned them. She picked up the rice parcel and hurried home. She remembered the child and began to run. When she approaches the gate, the dog, which has been let out at 10 p.m., came barking at Seela. She got scared and jumped aside. The dog jumped on top of the rice hanging in the silly bag on Seela's hand and tapped into both sides. The child's rice was scattered everywhere. The piece of fish was at her feet. Seela, who stared at it for a while, fell to the ground. She wept. Norbert immediately came and grabbed the dog. He was the gardener. Seela, did the dog bite you? No, right? I'll take it away. It might have gone wrong, or else it doesn't bark to you. The dog barked as it could understand Norbert's story. Seela slowly leaned forward and left, looking at the scattered rice as if her whole life had been shattered. In a moment, she remembered something. I took the last grain in the morning. It is too late now. She turned back to the Veeratna house. Slowly, she searched for Mrs. Veeratna. She was watching TV in the living room. The children were also nearby. Seela, who was hiding behind a pole, called out to Madam. Madam, Madam. Mrs. Veeratna did not hear her mourning, as she changed her mind and was ready to go back. Mrs. Veeratna saw her. She went to Seela and asked why. Seela, who had been looking and crying for a long time, said in trembling voice, May I have a bowl of rice? She asked pleadingly. It isn't anything to ask from me, Seela. Take some, said Mrs. Veeratna. Seela left the Veeratna house, even though she cooked the rice as soon as she got home. The child is dead now. Now she has no one to take care of. A week passed. She rarely worked at Veeratna house. Even Mrs. Veeratna did not ask about that. She completes with the meals carefully, considering the days of arrival. But Seela faints from time to time. No one knows why, but Seela does. It was when she sees Little Master. Now, Little Master was gone from the Veeratna house. But Sheila's dizziness is not cured. Now it also happens when she sees a photo of Little Master. 3 months later, Seela never returned to work. Mrs. Veeratna searched for her everywhere. Madam, Seela has gone somewhere. We also search everywhere. Every day we could hear her asking some to come to eat like crazy. She screamed, saying, You can take that call later. Come now, my son, said Anula, leaving the place. She must have gone mad of her son's death, said Anula again. Think for a moment. Think about your eating time. Think about the journey of the rice being cooked to eat. Seela in that story can be your own mother. It can be another adult. The number of lives and souls that depends on your time of eating is many. So listen to this story again and again.